Hi, everybody. Welcome to Not That Kind of Rabbi. I'm Ralph Benmergui, the host of the actual podcast, and we take a look at people through a spiritual lens on this program, people who come from all walks of life and all kinds of passions and beliefs and non-beliefs. You know, one of my favorite things is I do spiritual counseling with people. One of the things is they go, look, don't get me wrong, I don't believe in God. So the question that you have to ask at that point is, well, tell me about the God you don't believe in. And usually what it ends up being is a kind of a version of, you know, there's a guy on a throne with a beard and a naughty and nice list, which I try to remind people is Santa Claus, not actually God. So it would be best to stay away from that idea because I actually don't see, and I've spoken about this before in the program, I don't see God as a noun, as a thing. It's a verb. It's the action of everything in the cosmos. And somebody said to me, you know, look, you live, you die, I'm nothing. I said, but you have an effect on everything. And what do you mean? I said, take a plastic bottle, toss it into the water. The minute you've done that, you've started a ripple effect that is going to resonate throughout this planet. Your action matters, and you have a choice. You want to be a healthy cell in the body of all this crazy stuff we can never understand, or do you want to be a cancerous cell? And every day we have to make that decision, and some days you do both in the same day because, hell, we're just human beings. There's nothing we can do. Just finished the holiday of Passover. I'm Jewish, so that happens for me. It's our Jewish Christmas, which I say because it is the big family meal where you turn at one point and your mother's just glaring at you. And you're thinking, what did I do? What? Did I forget to give you something? What? And then your sister just looks at you and goes, what are we doing? Where are we? And, you know, that's family. So this year we had to do it, of course, virtually on Zoom. And even though it was the usual chaos of Benmergui tribe doing their thing, it ended up being quite lovely in its way. And there was something actually nice about everybody not having to pile into the car and get to someplace. You know, most of my family lives in Ottawa, having to drive to Ottawa and stay overnight and get the thing done. Not that I would say it's not good to hug people and be around them, but it's been pretty nice this time. So for all the Jewish people, if you're not Jewish, just watch Cecil B. DeMille's 4-hour movie, The Ten Commandments. That's the Exodus story. That's all you need to know, except for the really corny romance pieces that he threw in there, which are just inevitable. There's nothing. And Pharaoh is not Yul Brynner. Pharaoh is the internal tyrant that drives you up a wall and is critical of everything you do. That's your Pharaoh. All right, that's my thing. I'm excited because I've never actually spoken to my guest at this point in my life, and I have had the honor of speaking to all kinds of people throughout my life, and this one just got away. He just slipped out of the net and off he went. So now he's here, and I'm happy he's here. Alan Doyle is my guest. Alan Doyle, you know from his music, from Great Big Sea, his solo career, and his authorship. And that is becoming a bit of a prodigious part of Mr. Doyle himself. Is now they come to him and say, write another book. He goes, well, okay. And then he does it. That's the crazy part. So, Mr. Doyle, welcome to Not That Kind of Rabbi. It's great to have you here.
Oh, thanks so much for having me on. It's nice to talk to you. I must say, I miss your voice. I miss your voice on the radio and all that stuff. I've been a long fan of the CBC and of various things. And I do. It's funny that there are voices like yourselves and perhaps Sheila or someone or a few others locally here in St. John's that just I feel like, even though this is really the first time we got a chance to chat, I feel like I know you.
Well, don't you get the same thing when people see you on a stage and you sing, and then they walk up to you? I don't know how you feel about this part. I was always, when it was an obvious thing, there was a bit of an uncomfortableness and an honor when people would come to you and go, "Oh, I love your music. I listen to you all the time. You help me through the hardest things." How do you respond when people do that? When you're just walking down the street with your son or something, how do you respond to that?
It's always, I always love it. But I mean, I'm a sociaholic. So, it's like, if you're worried that there are people out there that, will come up to you and randomly talk to you or whatever, I'm one of those people. Like I am, like, so, I'm not the good one to judge whether or not people should have the meet and greet after the show, because I always want to do it. But that's one of the. I think that's one of the blessings of my life is that my personality or my energy or whatever is conducive to that kind of thing, because that's the kind of thing that usually drives people cracked, who are in the public eye and don't like it, and it's one of the strikes against it. And I've never ever found it a strike, so lucky me. And I have lots of friends who are great and reasonable and excellent people who just don't dig that kind of interaction, and I've always enjoyed it, and I think part of the reason I've always enjoyed it is because I'm from a small place, like where in my most formative years, I didn't get to meet many people, and so I always thought about that as a treat that might come someday if I ever got, a job where you got to meet people from different places and talk to them about what they did there, and so I think
running into all the townies and just go, oh, hi.
Yeah, well, honest to God, I mean, really, I mean, for your listeners, the Newfoundland is divided into two groups of people, right? The Baymen and the Townies, and I was a Bayman, from a little small fishing town, and coming to St. John's was a big deal, and I like go to a school where not all the people in your grade were your cousins. It was like an amazing thing. So yeah, I never minded that kind of thing, because chatting to people is all part of it for me, and it's all part of a night out.
I love it. I'm more of an introvert, so for me it was kind of and then my first wife, not that there's been 8 or anything, but my first wife used to say to me, they are honoring you by saying hello. Why don't, you're looking down at the ground and hoping this ends soon. And I really had to learn. I really took that to heart, and I learned to just look up and say, thank you very much, and then want to know about them.
Yeah. I mean, there are people in the world who are experts at that kind of thing, Yeah. And I think it's because it comes from a genuine place, genuine curiosity about other people, and there's no one better on earth at it than Ron McLean,
Right.
Ron could fly back into St. John's tomorrow and remember the girl's name who, cleans the dishes at the fish and chip shop,
I freaked out when I went to Newfoundland the first time. I'd never been there, and the culture shock from being, from the mainland and getting in there, it's just like, what is going on here? And I had a few friends by then from Codco, so I sort of hung on to them. I was like, please explain this place to me.
Yeah.
But I couldn't believe, CBC was like a religion. Oh, yeah. So I went into it, I was on radio at the time. Nobody knew what I looked like then. So I go into a store and they had some craft stuff, beautiful glassware and things. And I just start talking, and the woman just goes, "You're Ralph Benmergui."
Yeah.
How the hell do you know that? And then I get to the office to start doing the shows that we were going to do, the radio shows. The phone rings and somebody picks it up and goes, "It's for you, actually." I know no one on the island. So I walk over to the phone, hello, and they go, "Hi, how you doing, my dear?" I said, "I'm good." He goes, "Just wanted to say welcome to you. Understood you came into town and love what you do. Just love what you do." And I was like, "Oh my God, this place."
We do love to see people coming, and that's probably one of the things that, has always helped me in the situation we were talking about, where people, coming up to you, talking to you. So my God, there's nothing better than that. You could be out, and it has changed, of course, somewhat over, my adult life, where, but it's still God knows now, after this year of being in this room for a year, that it's always been a joy of mine. I must say, and in all honesty, I think it's a great thing to have a group of people, we'll say a band or a troupe or a traveling party that has both. That has people, who are not, because I was, certainly in bands over the years with people who were not inclined to go stand by the merch table and talk to someone about their cousin's cabin, in Dale Argent, but I mean, it does afford you an opportunity to sort of to buy cred in the company too. It's like, I'm totally happy to do that. You guys load the van, I'll go do that.
Like a punishment, which it isn't. All right, I have words that I want to give you, and I want to know what it evokes for you. So here's one: loyalty. What does that mean to you?
Not very much. Honestly, and I'll tell you why. It's because it's often used in my business as a kind of an obligation. And I always tell people, like especially who work together in a professional sense, I never need you to be loyal to me. I will never ask you to be loyal to me. If I'm a good idea and if what I'm doing is fun and interesting for you, please participate with me. When I need a favor, I promise I will ask. I promise I will. But I find, I don't know, there's something about like, maybe it's in like I watch too much Sopranos or something, that there's something about the word loyalty that has a negative connotation for me that I don't like. It implies to me that there's an obligation in it that I'm insisting you have, or that you insist that I have.
Right.
And so and I don't like it in a weird way.
It's interesting because there's this idea of the poisoned gift. You give somebody something, and there's something you inject into that gift that makes it not quite as pure as you would like, right?
Yeah. I mean, one of the things in that regard, I'm glad you said that actually, because here's one of the things. When my friends Alan Hocko and Perry Chafe and all the guys, it's 8 or 10 years ago now, got locked in, they presented the idea of doing this dad and son television show that became The Republic of Doyle on the CBC for a year. And it was a coup. Like they were going to be shooting it here, and they were writing it and doing it. And I was trying to think of how I could offer help without making it sound like I needed them to be loyal to me in some fashion and give me something to do on it. And so I figured out what I would say to them when I say, other than congratulations and this is so awesome and all that kind of stuff. I said, I will happily do anything you need me to do, including nothing. If you don't need me to do anything, right, please don't find awesome. Like I'll just cheerlead. That's totally fine too. Like, and
that's just a gift. That's not the poison gift of, hey man, congratulations, boy, I've always wanted to do stuff like that. That's just great.
Yeah.
You're like, oh.
Yeah, and I think
now you want me to be loyal to you.
Yeah, and again, like, so I'm very careful about that because I'm very careful about loyalty. I want to make it clear that if I've earned it with someone else, that doesn't mean I ever need them to earn it with me. I don't like the. It almost sounds like a ledger of some kind, and
it can be, right? The obligation is inherent in the saying of, well, look, I was loyal to you. You got to be loyal to me. And loyalty can also be come from a weakness in a person.
And like I'm very careful to say it, and I know it's probably semantics, but it's just like, I never ask it of people, and I don't, if there's something happening in your life that means you have to do something else, then please do. And like I say, if I'm very clear to sort of add to the thing, if I need a favor, I will ask. So I'm not asking you to do this because it's a good idea. I'm asking you because I need a favor right now.
All right, so let me go from loyalty to family.
Yeah.
When I say family, what comes to your mind?
My family, and I'm, from Newfoundland, of course. We, family occupies a kind of I used to think it occupied a really different place than it actually does, I suppose, because families, I never ever imagined growing up that family could mean as much in a big city as it does in a town of 500 people. But of course then you start meeting families, as you say, the Ben Murgy clan, and it does, it does mean as much in different circumstances and all that stuff. But families in Newfoundland, I think that sort of topic is very closely connected with town as well, and small towns and fishing communities and harbors and the like, where your extended family really ends up being the town, right? Because you basically do everything together. I mean, you entertain each other, and you go to school together, and you effectively live together, and you play sports together, and and all those things that you only have your townspeople to do it with when you're from an isolated little place, right? And so it's it occupies what I thought was a completely unique place in Newfoundland, and I've come to learn it really isn't totally unique, but it is a different scenario, the concept of family, when you're in a place has a small population and you live within 9 feet of each other, unlike say a farming area where the houses are probably kilometers and kilometers apart. I mean, in Petty Harbour, where I grew up, I mean the houses are inches from each other going to the hill, right?
But what the other part of it I find interesting is sometimes family can define you in ways that are restricting, that really make you feel like, no, but you're Alan, you this is how you do things. How do you grow your individual part of yourself when somebody like you who cherishes family doesn't run away from it? And my God, your parents moved to St. John's, your siblings moved, and they all live on the same bloody street. So like everybody's close, right? But how do you then still get to go, I know you guys think I'm just like this, but there's this other part of me that's growing and I need some room for that. How do you do that?
Well, now, again, I'm probably not the best guy to ask that question to, and here's why. I was born into the Doyles in Petty Harbour, right? And for generations, literally generations, like well beyond my grandfather, the Doyles are the band. Like my uncles all played in bands. My mother was the church organist. My father sang I replaced my father in my uncle's band. like I am wearing the Doyle brand like nobody ever has.
So you're good with the assignation.
Yeah, for me, it's I think it would be different for my, one of my sisters, who's not a singer, for example. She go like, "Oh, you're a Doyle from Petty Harbour?" Yes, but I'm a medical professional. I don't sing. So I'm responsible for the mold more than that. But I also, and I still, and I only say that because I know that it's one of the big things that makes me lucky, and I always say that I'm lucky, and people say, no, but you worked hard and all that stuff too, and I go, yeah, but I'm not really talking about that, sure, yeah, great, but I was also born into the Doyle family in Petty Harbour, and I wanted to be in a band,
Well, which came first, wanting to be in the band or being
I don't know. I mean, that's literally, and that's even the greater blessing, isn't it? I always, people say, my joke is, how people say they learn their lessons the hard way. I always go, I learned mine the easy way. Didn't even know I was learning them. It's like, I was 10 before I knew everyone didn't play guitar. I was like, what do you mean?
Why wouldn't you play guitar?
At all?
What kind of family are you, for God's sake?
Yeah, so, I mean, I'm not the guy to answer that question, because I never, ever felt anything but buoyed up and lifted by the if my family has a reputation, that's what it is. It's for the good time, guys,
Yeah, but there's a lot of people who really spend a lot of their life trying to move away from family so that they feel they can be themselves without family going, but you're the oldest, you're the youngest, you do this, you do that. Yeah. You saw it as a warm blanket, not as
I did.
A jail.
But I totally acknowledge that what you're saying is correct, and that there's even people from the Doyles in Petty Harbour who didn't want to be the crowd singing on the St. Patrick's Day concert. They wanted to be mathematicians, or whatever, and they moved to Toronto, and they're in that tiny percentage of Newfoundlanders that we know that are not really jumping up and down about the fact about coming home. They're like, I'm fine. I'm totally fine here in Scarborough. And we're all like, what? Really? Don't you want to come home? Don't you bleed to come home? It's like, not really. I'll come home for Christmas or something. But and I know that family and that kind of brand, if you will, for lack of a better word, it doesn't suit everyone as well as it has suited me.
Yeah, no. Listen, that's a gift.
I know, it really is.
All right, I got another word for you. Faith.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one. because it means about 9 different things, right? Doesn't it?
Yeah.
And, faith, when I was a kid, was almost exclusively a religious term, about, because I was born into a I was on the Catholic side of Petty Harbour, which in my little town was split right in two, with Protestants on one side and a Protestant fish plant and a Protestant church and a Protestant school and a Protestant grocery store, and over on my side there was a Catholic school and a Catholic fish plant and whereas I hung around with all the kids from the other side of the bridge, my grandparents, people of my grandparents' age, certainly did not, and it was. So I was a couple of generations away from an actual religious divide, so I could still see it and feel it, right? And I didn't know any of this, of course, when I was a kid, but, the fact that the kids I played ball hockey with didn't go to my school. They went to a different one. Right. Because we had religious separated things. So faith was all wrapped up in that, right? And of course I was interested in being in a band and on stage, so guarantee you I put on the soutane as soon as I got it, man. Every Sunday, the greatest show going. Get up on mass. Are you kidding me? Sing songs, get in the choir. Awesome. But
did it mean, was there a connection to you to a spiritual or divine idea, or was it just more community?
For me personally, now, and this, I wouldn't say this for, I wouldn't speak for anybody but other than myself, of course. But as a kid, for me, it was community. Mass was, and still is, I think, for a lot of, small town, Christian places that, Catholic or Protestant or whatever, that, that's what you do. That's what happens on Wednesdays is the ladies, choir thing. And then on Sundays is the card game, and the church is the social, focal point of the community, right? And of course, again, a generation or two before mine, they were also the school, and they were also, the moral compass, as well as the police, and the teachers and the nurses, and it was all nuns and priests, and the calendar year was defined by the the fishery and the church, so, but I mean, no, for me, I think it's true for lots of kids who are my age. I was born in the last few breaths of the 1960s, and I was coming of age in the late 1970s, when I was 10 or 11 or whatever, and, I was 11 in 1980, and I think that there was, we were about to, and none of us knew this, of course, but we were about to enter a huge transition in organized religion, especially in Catholic faith, and especially in Newfoundland, because there was this huge story about to break about abuse in the in the Catholic Church and all that stuff, and it just rocked the place, but we didn't know any of that then, and I was just happy, being on the altar, because you get to fix the microphone for the priest. And then shortly after I was 12 or 13, they started, remember, there was a time, I think it was really in the late 70s in the US and stuff, but it made its way to Eastern Canada by the early 80s, where there was this folk mass. Oh yeah. So instead of the organ and the ladies' choir on Sunday mornings, on Saturday night they'd have a folk mass, right? And so I got off the altar to play guitar in the folk mass, and I was like, this is. So I don't have to get up Sunday morning at all. I can go here and Kathy Hanlon will teach me to play funny chords on guitar. This is amazing. And so, yeah. So for me, it was very social and I didn't know as a kid that my faith was being sort of, defined for you, like capital F faith, and then, you go through the different stages where, it comes and goes, in religious terms, organized religious terms. And then, of course, the whole thing about small f faith, about being, which for me always means believing in something that you don't know is true, right?
Like
everything from climbing a hill that is slippery, that you need to climb, right?
Right.
And I mean, you don't know if you can do it. If you have faith that you can do it, it increases your odds tremendously. That is not that is as close to a fact as I know, and like I don't know if there's been a adventurer, a sports team that wouldn't tell you that believing in something that you don't know is true is essential to success and happiness, and so that's where faith and small f faith and big F faith for me are two circles that definitely intersect, but they're not the same thing at all.
So I was just talking to Hawksley Workman, who says hello, by the way.
Oh, he's lovely.
Lovely. But he said that he's always had this thing where he feels that he doesn't have a lot of faith in humanity, that he's worried that it's, we're not who we keep telling everybody we are. What's your faith like about others? Do you believe in people? I don't mean just the occasional people. Do you fundamentally believe that humanity is a positive thing worth?
Undeniably, yes, 100%. Almost always, and like look at the stuff we've done. Like look at the especially when I think of like. And it's a bigger question than I can probably answer in a short period of time. But it's the fact that everything from a small coastal town like I live in, where you have to look after each other, right? And that's rural Newfoundland is known for, hospitable and looking after each other because we just have to. It's just a given. And I used to think that big cities then must not be like that. Right? Because they'll be different and they're loud and people don't know each other and it's kind of, and then I had the luck, I spent a lot of time in New York City, right? And it was like, that must, and people from small towns go, they must be really unfriendly. Or like, actually, no. I mean, like they're quick and they're in a hurry but they have to get along like nowhere else on earth. Right? And they they literally have to get along. Like they have to get along together. Like doesn't matter what your economic station is in New York City. You have to walk down that's it. You have to coincide with people and get along and be good. And I just I mean. And I think as well, especially like in the last half dozen years or so, being really interested in, in mental health issues and the like, that I think that, a significant amount of things that we would have thought of as bad or evil or are really mental health issues that if treated properly will go away.
Yeah. It's like... there's two ways to look at things, you can spare the rod, spoil the child kind of mentality, or you can have, in politics, I do a fair amount of work in political communications, and in politics, there's the two pieces. George Lakoff wrote a book called Don't Think of an Elephant, and he lays out that for the right wing, for the right of center people, it's about that. It's a strict father kind of idea, right? The guy who's about to hit you and says, this is going to hurt me more than it hurts you. And for the progressive, it's the nurturing parent point of view, right? So for that, you end up with saying, well, let's go upstream and find out what it is that actually makes this end up happening. Yeah. And for the other one, it's kill the symptom. Yeah. Right? Even if you crush the spirit of the person and they can't ever become what they could have become. Yeah. But you need more patience for the second one than the first, right?
Yeah, and it's a bit, it's definitely a change in my worldview than when I would have been a kid, when it would be when somebody broke into our house and stole something. The last thing in the world that would have ever occurred to anybody where I grew up and when I was a kid would be, well, I wonder what's wrong with that guy and how we can help him.
Right. It's just that son of a bitch just took that stuff and
we're
going to find him.
Yeah. And so like that's a shift, right? I mean, and so, but I mean, yeah, I mean, I also am inspired by acts and things that people do. Like I find people amazing. And here's a simple example of like, you know, for example, you go to Lake Louise, right? I'm sure you've been there many times, you know, like
lovely place.
And you go to Lake Louise and you look at the lake and you look at the mountain and you look at the stuff, and it's like nature is just spectacular. And I look at the hotel and go, that's the coolest thing to me. People did that.
Right.
People came here and did that. And look at it in the middle of all this. That's us and all the rest of it working together to make even more beauty. You know, like that's I'm always more interested in what people did, where they did it, you know, like and I'm like, and that's the simplest example. And if I expanded on it more, it would be similar. But that's a good way to explain how I feel about travel and the like, you know, like I look at the cliffs of Moher or whatever, you know, and it's just this beautiful, untouched, landscape that's incredible to me. But I look at Santorini or something in Italy with all the houses hanging off the cliff, and I go, that's pretty cool. People did that.
It's funny because I actually don't think, I think I may be on the other side of that piece, which is that if I'm at Lake Louise and I'm looking into the turquoise clear water and looking up at the mountains, I find myself in a feeling of oneness, that everything is God and God is everything, that it all is this flow. When I look at the hotel, I see us putting ourselves into that, but I worry sometimes that we're trying to put ourselves into it with the least amount of connection to it possible.
Yeah.
Hanging out at the bar in the hotel and then having a guided tour where it mediate the experience through somebody. But when there's a thing at Louise where you have this huge hike up a trail to the tea house that they have at the top.
See, that's amazing to me.
It is absolutely. So that's a perfect combination, right? Because you crawl up, and halfway up, people, when you're coming back down, people who are still halfway up are going, is it much further?
I know.
Is it going to be much further? Yeah. They go, yes, but it's soup and tea. There's no, like, they don't have a full kitchen up there. You need a Sherpa for that. But I do think that the built environment doesn't give me the sense of wonder and awe. Like if I look at downtown Toronto's metal and glass, condominium mountains and canyons, I feel like there is no spirit in this,
That's not to say that we always get it right. And
but when we do,
it thrills me.
Right.
And there's urban environments where I think that we got it right, and not me, of course, because I play guitar for a living, when you go to, I don't know, it's tough not to go to Quebec City and go, it was pretty cool.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Listen, cool.
The Chrysler building is pretty cool.
It is so. It is, to me, it is,
Yeah.
And, I wouldn't want a world that didn't have the cliffs of Moher and Santorini in it.
Yeah. But you're saying that
I would like both.
You have faith in what people are. What does the word God mean to you?
I know what it used to mean, like what I was brought up for it to mean, he was the, in your preamble, you were talking about the guy in the chair, and that's exactly who it was.
Right.
That's exactly, and the reason why I thought that's who he was is because that's who I was told in no uncertain terms that's who he was.
Right.
And the reason why, I think a lot of people come to you perhaps and think that is because they were told by very influential, important people in their lives or in their parents' lives that's exactly who it is, and do what you're told or he'll get you, and
yeah, like a cop.
Yeah, and like not a nice one, like he's got some.
So bugger again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So that's like when I was a kid, of course, right? That's, what the priests all said, and that's what my parents said, because that's what the priest said. And I was always too curious for my own good, especially with matters of, that's why I did a religious studies degree. And because I was just super curious about even religion. And I wrote about one of my earliest questions about organized religion when I was on the altar in Petty Harbour, and I was, I don't know, 12 or something, I suppose, or 11 or 12, and I was serving Mass, and I dropped the host, right? I dropped the host.
Not a good idea.
It was bad. Like it didn't. And the priest, I said, and I said something after to the priest who was mad about it, and I said, well, it's just a symbol of the body of Christ, And I'll get another one or whatever. And he said, and he freaked, at an 11-year-old, but freaked at like, he said, that is not a symbol of the body of Christ. That is the body of Christ. And I was like, and again, I was 12 years old or 11, and I went, can you tell me that again? This is not a symbol of the body of Christ. This is the body of Christ. And I was like, and he could tell that I didn't know the holy, the miracle of transubstantiation, and he explained a little tiny bit about transubstantiation, and I didn't really understand it. So when I went home, I went up to my grandmother's across the road in Petty Harbour, because they had a bunch of Encyclopedia Britannicas.
Oh, yeah.
And I looked up transubstantiation. And I looked at it, and it was like, the miracle wherein, if I remember the terms correctly now, the affect and the effect were, it's impossible to change what something actually is without changing what it appears as. Or, you can change, the look of something without changing its essence. But you can't change the essence of something and have it appear as if you have. With the exception of the host. That is the miracle of transubstantiation.
Wow.
Right? So, and I was like, so I went back to Mass the next week, and I said, Father, nobody knows that. And he said, what do you mean? I was like, I asked my aunt, I asked my mother, they all think it's a symbol. Nobody thinks it's the real deal. And he's like, Alan, you're gone too deep into this now. This is sort of, I was like, but don't you think this is important? Like,
yeah.
Nobody in the audience here knows that. That seems big to me. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah. And anyway, but I was basically told to shut up, and stop asking foolish questions.
Well, that's the pediatric religion conundrum, where you're trying, in the Jewish Torah, there's a line that says, don't try to talk about these things to somebody till they're 20, for one thing. And in those days, that was midlife. Right? Because you didn't past 40 wasn't going to happen for most people. But it's also that we end up, there's an old Jewish joke where it's like, Rabbi, there's mice in the synagogue. He says, yeah, don't worry about it. What do you mean don't worry about it? It's going to eat the parchment. It'll eat the Torah itself. Like, they're mice. He goes, all right, calm down. You want to do something about it? Go put little kippas, little yarmulkes on their heads. Give them a bar mitzvah. You'll never see them again. Because that's, when a kid grows up and they get to adolescence, they question these things and they don't mean anything. But then what I worry about is that we lose, like, what you do in your life on that stage. To me, that's church. That is church. When you stand there and you haven't even put the guitar over your head, you're just going to sing a song for people.
A miracle.
It's a miracle.
It's a miracle.
And people just sit in it and feel what you can't intellectualize. They just feel the unity of everything and everyone, right?
Yeah, I've said, for the theaters of the world, that's church enough for me. That's like people gathering together to share a song. That's holy enough for me. I don't ever need anything holier than that. That's and that's a beautiful thing that hasn't changed in hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. A bunch of people facing that way with a fella facing the other way in front of them doing something.
That's
right. and but I mean, the God thing for me was always, that was the start of a great lifetime of questioning, and the one thing I never had any time for, as soon as I was old enough to recognize, was anybody who didn't want me questioning it.
Right.
It's like, man, if you don't want to talk about this, then I'm out. Like, that's totally fine with me. Don't worry, you'll never have me bugging you again. like, that's cool, man. All good.
So it's sort of like,
as soon as I was told to not tell everyone that the transubstantiation thing was a big deal, I was like, okay. Well.
Yeah. So organized religion didn't do it for you. Is there a disorganized religion for you?
Well, it was funny. I figured, and I studied religion in university, mostly like religious history and Christianity and stuff, primarily because I thought I'd be a teacher. And when I went to university, it was still segregated schools, right? There was a Catholic system, so I studied English and I studied religion, and I figured because I'd get a job as a teacher. And I also found religion fascinating. Like, it drove people to do crazy things, and it literally separated my town in half, so I always found it interesting. And because I read, I did a bachelor's degree in religion. That means I'm wicked smart. And then, I figured that I guess I must be atheist now. And so I read all the, as soon as when the Great Big Sea started, I'd be driving around, the world reading atheist books, because I felt as well that was some kind of woke thing or something. Like, look at me, I'm in a band reading atheist books. Who doesn't want to go to the pub with me? Come on, my songs must be excellent. And but then it's funny that
didn't
you could
take
say disorganized religion, but it ties back to a question you raised earlier about faith, and so I describe myself now as a religious free agent, because I go and I go I found atheism, as sensible as it is, full on atheism, was just I couldn't find a lane in it so far, anyway, that allowed for that belief in things that you don't know are true, right? And there's lots of times when you believe in something that isn't true, or no one can prove is true, that's damning and bad, but there's also times when it's really good. It's really good for you to believe that you can do something that you don't know if you can, and it's good to believe or have faith, if you will, in your fellow man, for example. It's helpful, and so I don't know,
people.
Even though one of my favorite sort of, and I don't remember exactly which author it was, but one of my greatest sort of rebukes of organized religion, I suppose, is the whole notion that there are great mysteries in humanity. There are great mysteries in humanity. There are fewer than there once was, right? But there are still great mysteries that are unanswered. What is wrong with proceeding not knowing the answers? That's what's wrong with, I don't know. Well, we don't know. We don't know any of that. So what's wrong with just saying we don't know? Why create a doctrine or a dogma to explain it? And so if you believe this, then we'll say that. But it's but you don't need to believe it. You don't need to believe in that. And that's that. If there's a pull to, full atheistic thought for me, it's in that logic of well, I don't need to know,
Well, but there's the other, I totally hear that. And there's the other piece, which is we need to make space for awe and for wonder. That you can say, people say, prove God. And then the answer sometimes is, prove love. You spend your whole life looking for it. You spend your whole life thinking you either have it or don't have it, your proximity or distance from it, and you can't find it. You can't put your hands on it. We live in a very rational society in a time where answers are important because they give us a sense of certainty. But, as the Chinese would say, To be uncertain is uncomfortable. To be certain is ridiculous. So either you're atheistic and certain that there's no such thing, or you're highly, extreme religion, which says this is literal. All of it is literal. And both of them, I think, missed the mark. In between is the beauty of curiosity and not knowing, and that staying confused is a much richer vein to be in than having answers, right?
And quite frankly, has bought us so much.
Yeah.
Being curious and finding the answers to things that we don't know are the reasons why me and you are alive still, and we didn't die at 41.
True enough.
It's true. Like, we didn't know the answer to that, and we didn't go, well, it must be because God is angry that your chest exploded. No, but you ate chips all your life, like that kind of thing. But it's like, yeah, I do like that idea, that notion of like, my God, how lucky are we if we are comfortable with not knowing the answer? That to me is a blessed place to be. Is like, I don't know, and if I never know, that's fine, I've often heard other sort of rebukes or fears of like atheistic kind of thinking about like, well, what do you think? When you die, you just rot and go back into the ground? You're like, well, what would be wrong with that?
Yeah, I just said that to somebody yesterday.
What's wrong with that? Like, worms eat me and then they go on and something eats that and a flower grows because of me? That's awesome. Like,
well, there's the guy, Stephen Jenkinson, a Canadian who wrote a book called Die Wise, said, what we seem to not understand is that the human lifespan is not life itself. It is a human moment in the ever-flowing energy of life.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
So if you die and they put you in the ground and you become fertilizer and then you end up growing plants, then you're still in the flow of the life and the constant creation of the universe, which is what we're in the middle of, right?
That
we can't possibly know it.
That to me is way more than enough. It's like, great. Like, it's like,
I'm done, thank you.
Good. No, I don't need more than that, I certainly don't need a boogeyman, like.
Well, but on the other hand, I think some of that stuff, like the Grimm fairy tales, was to make sure the kid didn't walk off into the forest and get themselves killed.
Yeah.
And so I was saying yesterday to my wife, this 10 Commandments thing, if you didn't have these fundamental rules for people, they would end up killing each other at a much higher rate than they are now. Don't covet your neighbor's wife or their oxen or anything else. Yeah. Don't steal. Don't kill. Don't have sex with anybody you say hi to. These these are things that get you into trouble eventually. You get a punch in the face at the end of one of them.
Yeah. But, there's also, of course, the corollary to that kind of thinking is that, there's lots of people gets punches in the face, too.
Yeah.
And that looks after it, too. And, like, it's like, I don't know. Like,
except a person punching could be just as a screw.
We have, are the people who never read the 10 Commandments more murderous?
No, but you know what? They've all made up their own version.
Yeah. Arguably.
That religion is an attempt, like I always say, spirituality is about relationship, right? To yourself, to other people, and to the world and the universe. But religion are attempts at a fitness program.
It's right. It's like a how-to book. And
and just and if you don't have rituals that continually bring you back, then you just drift off.
I like those things because of the community they create and all that stuff.
Yeah.
That to me is some of the joy of organized religion, if you will, or a community that comes from it. Whereas, look, my son is 14, and I guarantee he's never heard the 10 Commandments ever in his life. Not one time. Wouldn't know a church if. Yeah,
but he lives in it. He lives in the. You get arrested for this. You get arrested for that, right?
To my recent check, I don't think he's killed anyone. Like,
check his room.
It's early yet. It's only 1 o'clock.
When a kid's 14, you always got to check the room.
Yeah, it's impossible, I suppose, for any of us to know what would be like, what we would be like outside of,
It's woven into our culture.
Some kind of Christian agenda or what have you, or something similar, because I'd have no idea, like it'd be silly for me to think that my day-to-day actions aren't in response to or determined somehow by a decade or two of religious programming and a society and a Western world that is as well,
So the music you do now, is it become, what goes through you now? Is it the same heart, same feeling, the same heart that you have when you get up on a stage now than when you're in the middle of a great big sea and having lots of drinks and hanging out and becoming a star? I mean, what happens when this Alan Doyle walks up onto a stage?
Well, my primary motivation is the same, and that as well goes back to like being a Doyle from Petty Harbour, and my primary motivation has always been to give people a good night out and to be extremely rewarded and satisfied by the fact that you were somehow the supervisor of a grand celebration. I mean, as musical as the Doyle family is in Petty Harbour, of course, they only sang for celebration.
Right.
Mass, funeral, church, concert, garden party, dance, bar, and so there's a satisfaction in being from a hard-working place that gets one night out a week, and you turned a good night into an excellent one. That's I like that. I still like that. And I would go so far as to say, and not all my, artistic friends are like it, but I love when there's so much other stuff about it, but that's enough for me. Giving people a great night out that's not everything, but that's more than enough for me. But
how do you give them that? Sure, of course you want, but it's the how. Has anything?
Well, but I guess the distinction I'm making is that a lot of my artistic friends, perform as a recitation, or they hone what they do, they demonstrate it for people and hope they like it.
Yeah.
And if they do, they're satisfied, and if they don't, well, it's not much else I can do about it. Where I always joke that if I came out and sang 2 of my songs and I looked out into the audience and realized there'd been a horrible mistake and that people had bought tickets to a plumbing show, but I was shagged up, I would drop my guitar and run and get 2 pipes and a welding torch and start doing it. And I'm completely unashamed of that. Right away. Yeah, okay, cool. Plumbing it is. Here we go. And the entertainer in me just loves that so much. But I think to answer your question more specifically, I have recognized that there's a saying that's kind of recent. I think it's recent anyway, where people say a song or a night that gives them all the feels or all the feelings. Mm-hmm. It's like, that song gives me all the feelings. That's what the young crowd say, and I think that's important. Like that. If you're trying to give, in a show or in a concert that I always try to demonstrate and include people in a variety of rises and falls, and that if it's all joy, then there's less joy, right? If it's all up, then nothing's up. If it's all down, then very little is down. And so it's the motion, and that's why even when Great Big Sea was doing the biggest beer gardens in the world, I always insisted that I write the set list, because I wanted to try to craft that arc and that
hills and valleys.
Yeah, and so that people felt like there was a message in there, so that they got everything they came for. The perfect night is when everyone gets everything they came for and 10 other things.
Right.
They didn't know they were getting what is that? What did you just sing about? Did you just sing about 4 people lost on the ice in Fogo Island at the beer garden show? What was that?
It's so interesting, because sometimes when I listen to your music, and these days, particularly when it's you, the solo, there's such a wonderful mix of sorrow and grace and passion and intimacy to what you're doing, and joy.
Yeah.
And with Great Big Sea, it was like, let's party. party. And
Yeah,
with this, I don't get that same thing. I get a more rounded idea.
I'm grateful for you saying that. Great Big Sea, of course, there's two reasons really for that, and one of them was our age, and that really, I was 24 when Great Big Sea started playing hockey rinks, so like, and then if Great Big Sea aired on that side of like over delivering, the beer garden night out, I'm probably more responsible for that error than anyone, because I was always terrified that, as I explained earlier, that people wouldn't have a great night out, and like,
which is a lot more when you're younger.
Yeah, and then I didn't realize as much as I do now that there's way more rises and falls in a great night out than I would have imagined back then. And that people who come, especially now, they come to, and I hope this is true, and I believe it to be true, I hope it's true, that people come because they want to see you and be with you. So you be you. And when there's joy for you, bring it to them, and if there's something else, bring that too, and like that's all part of a good night out, and like, so as you say, I'm way more inclined now to have a quiet moment to talk about how grateful I am to be here, in a song, or to talk about something that's very, very specific to me, and to let people see a very personal underbelly, in a song than I would have been when I was 30,
That's a natural progression, right?
I think so. And
become yourself, to become present to who you are, and being comfortable. You own it.
Yeah, and you bring you, and because people come, especially like, it's not like I'm Nash the Slash or something, like, right? I'm dating myself there now. It's not like, I like, people, knock on wood, they come to be with me, like, so.
And you take that responsibility seriously.
Oh man, it's 100. That's a contract. That's holy to me. Like, did you take a night out of your life to come here with me? In hopes that I would, I would make a good night for us all. That's very, very, very important. And if you're in the music business, in the concert business, or in any performative arts business, and that's not important to you, then you better look for a different job. like if that's not important, like, I'm not sure what you're doing this for a living for,
Yeah. Yeah, it does remind me, though, of the sort of Vegas casino circuit of bands that used to be the band, and now there's just a kind of a shell of the band that goes around and does the hits for people. I always worry for the artists in there, because I know they're making a living. Yeah. I have nothing against them, but I also feel like they must just be up there going, oh, what the hell. Right.
I would say it runs the gamut, because one of the things I'm most proud of these days is just I'm constantly trying to offer something new still, like I'm just, and it gets increasingly harder, right? But there is a great satisfaction in feeling that you're still actively contributing to the canon of whatever people liked, but there's also, and I think, if I had been in Journey,
right,
I guarantee you, I wouldn't mind singing "Don't Stop Believin'" for 25,000 people who dig "Don't Stop Believin'." I wouldn't mind it. I'd probably have a solo record over there that no one liked, stories me and my father used to sing about. But if people dug it, that's cool too. But like, I would still enjoy singing "Don't Stop Believin'." Like, I'm telling you right now.
It's funny because Mandy Patinkin, who was in Princess Bride, right? Yeah. Everybody walks up to him and says, you killed my father. He does the line. Oh. And they asked him, like, you must get sick of that, man. Like, it's been 35 years, whatever. And people are still doing it. He goes, I love it. Every single time they do it, I'm with them. I'm looking them right in the eye, letting them deliver the line. I give them a hug and I just say, thank you so much.
Man, it's a blessed thing, man, to have a song that occupies that space for people, and that, like, and or to have a movie, or to have a, It's a
an offering.
So I just it's a thrill for me. It literally is a thrill, and I wouldn't, the Vegas nostalgia trip. Man, oh man, I'd do that. I'd do that in my 60s for 20 years.
That would work.
Oh yeah, I'd be all right with that. No problem. Yeah, sing that old one. You got it.
All right, I'm gonna go. I've loved talking to you.
Oh yeah, it was an hour probably.
Yeah, it's been good.
Yeah. I'm shameful sometimes, shameless, I should say, about that.
No.
About that whole thing. It's just go like, yeah. And some of them, I've seen some of the nostalgia acts, and you can, but I think you hit the nail on the head about it, and it's like, are they loving delivering it? Because if they are, then I'll love it too. But if it looks like, then it's not going to be much fun, Yeah. And I've seen both ends of it. I remember, I saw David Lee Roth not that long ago, and Dave doesn't sing super well anymore, but most of his shows gags about how he can't jump and how he can't stuff. And here's a song we all loved in 1984. I'm going to do it for you best I can right now. And I was like, that's awesome. This is, yeah.
There was a guy, George Oliver was his name. He was an R&B guy in Toronto. He was in a band called the Mandela. And they did Love-itis. That was one of their hits in the 60s, and when I was a kid. And I ended up in this really awful cover band, the 60s cover band that we used to go around Southern Ontario, and I was the singer. And we were in the basement of this bar in I think Woodstock, Ontario, or London. We had the good gig. He had the upstairs place, because by then people weren't listening to him much. And he did the whole kind of James Brown, Wayne Cochran thing. He was really into it. So they made him do a matinee show on a Saturday. And I crawled down from my hotel room to sit and watch him, smoking a cigarette, sitting there just hanging out and eating fries. And he comes out, and there's maybe 7 people in the bar. He gives it everything he's got.
Yeah, I love that.
The mic stand is almost hitting the floor, and he's throwing it back in and grabbing. And I was it taught me everything about being in the business.
Oh, I love it. Yeah.
This guy didn't have to he could have been sneering at us the whole time, and I would have understood. Yeah. And there he was giving it. If I'm going to do a show, I'm giving her. I'm doing this show. I loved it.
I have a few sayings for that. Was one of them I always say, like, don't play the empty seats, play the full ones. And I would say, like, whenever you're playing a later attended show, I would say to the band beforehand, guys, who do you think is awesome sold out in Manhattan on Friday night?
Right.
Everybody.
Right.
Your chance to really separate you from the pack is in Woodstock on a Saturday matinee when there's only 12 people there. That's what makes you great. Not that. Everybody's fucking good Friday night in New York. Jesus.
Well, when stand-up, you'd look out the crowd and see if there was anybody there when I used to do that in my 20s. And there were guys who'd get up on the stage and they just berate the audience, right? They just start attacking them. And they go, look, they showed up. They're the ones who actually showed up.
That's right.
If you want the ones that didn't show up, go find them. Go to their house and go, where the hell were you?
You are the lucky few. I said, I also have this ridiculous, I think it's ridiculous anyway, overcompensation for poorly attended shows I've developed over the years. You go like, this is our chance, man. This is a way better chance in this town than if it was full. Because now there's like 80 people here who are going to go, oh man, there was only like 80 of us there. And you got... Now, I realize that's short-sighted. However, it does get you through the night.
And the rest of the band would look at you and go, oh, for Christ's sake.
Yeah. Dude,
this sucks. We wanted a full house, man.
Dude, it's Canmore on Wednesday afternoon. Nice to talk to you.
All right, Mr. Doyle, you take care of yourself, all right?
You too. Have a great day.
All right. See you later.
Cheers.
Alan Doyle. You probably know him best from Great Big Sea. Solo artist, author. Some of his work includes, there's so many that I had to actually pick some. Books, Where I Belong, A Newfoundlander in Canada, and All Together Now, that's just 3 of them. Rough Side Out, A Week at the Warehouse. That's all Alan Doyle. Go to his website, alandoyle.ca, and you'll find more stuff. Pleasure to talk to him. Really enjoyed it. If you want more info, just go to my Facebook page, Not That Kind of Rabbi, and give me your comments about the show and who you'd like to hear on it. We're expanding. We're going into Patreon in a little moment or two. And if you want to support my work here on this podcast, please do. In the meantime, I want you to take care of each other. We're not quite through all of it, but we're getting there. And this recording was done in springtime. Yes, crocuses were actually coming up. New things are going to happen for us. And let's just keep our faith and keep our hope in each other and in ourselves in getting through this difficult time. You take care of each other. I'm Ralph Ben-Mergi, and this is Not That Kind of Rabbi.